everybody. Thanks for joining us for another wonderful episode of Thyroid Refresh TV. I'm Danna Bowman, co-founder.
And I'm Jenny Maher, and we are so excited to be here today with Jennifer Fugo.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Yeah,
Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. Before we get started, I want to tell everybody a little bit about your letters and a little bit about you, because you've done a lot of great things. Let's see. Jennifer Fugo, MS, CNS, is a clinical nutritionist empowering women who've been failed by conventional medicine to beat chronic skin and unending gut challenges. I would be one of those. Because she's overcome a long history of gut issues and eczema, Jennifer has sympathy and insight to help her clients discover missing pieces and create doable integrative plans. I need one of those. Simply put, Jennifer believes that you deserve better. That's why she launched skinterrupt.com to interrupt the failed conversation about chronic skin problems with helpful alternatives that you aren't being told about. It's a really important topic. You can see her work. She's been featured on Dr. Oz and Yahoo and CNN. She's got lots of podcasts. She's the founder of Gluten Free Schools. She's a friend. I've had her on my show for Thyroid Nation before. She's absolutely wonderful. And I'm really glad to have you, Jennifer, because I am one of those people who have skin issues and thyroid problems. So I really want to kind of get into the meat of that. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm glad, and feel free, pick my brain. This is a great opportunity to do that, and I'm happy to share whatever I know with you and your audience.
Can we maybe just start by touching on the link between thyroid and skin issues? How do those two things play together?
Absolutely. So thyroid issues, as your listeners and viewers probably know, your thyroid is like the thermostat. It's sort of I like to think of it as like command central. It helps control your thermostat. It helps control, if your hands and feet are cold, whether you're tired or you have energy. It does a lot of different things to make sure that the body can function in a proper way. And so for those who end up with issues where the thyroid is either in a subclinical state, so that would be in the case where you don't necessarily have antibodies, but your thyroid function's not optimal. TSH is elevated, and perhaps free T4 and free T3 are not within an optimal range, but they don't know why. And it usually has to do with nutrient insufficiencies, macro and micro nutrients. And then you have more along the lines of like Hashimoto's, for example, which is autoimmune. And so the thyroid controls some really interesting things. Number one, if you are on the autoimmune spectrum, you have to know right there that it does open you up to an increased possibility and risk of developing an additional autoimmune disease. Other autoimmune diseases, especially in the skin realm, include, there is dermatitis herpetiformis, which is the celiac variant, because that's sort of like connected to celiac disease. And then you also have psoriasis, which is another autoimmune disease, which is pretty a lot of people have psoriasis worldwide. And so what happens with the thyroid as far as the skin is concerned? So I actually had this great conversation with, and I hope maybe too, I'll connect to you guys with this amazing practitioner. Her name is Bree Weitzman. And what she shared with me, which was really fascinating, is that your thyroid actually determines, as we said, it's like a thermostat. It does a lot of this command central type stuff. If, for example, you're in a low thyroid state, it's not going to allow a lot of the waste products that are produced at the cellular level to be removed properly, because you're seeing this lack of blood flow that is sent out peripherally. And so all cells produce waste. Your mitochondria, which are the little power plants in every single cell, they're really important, by the way, just to produce the basis of energy. So this is even more basic than your thyroid or your adrenals in the hormone landscape. This is all the way down here. You have to have properly functioning mitochondria in order to have energy to do anything else. But that produce waste. It produced free radicals, which you need those antioxidants to quench. But then also just whatever happens cellularly from a metabolism standpoint, they have to be cleared away. And when you don't have the waste products being cleared away, the cells begin to essentially sit or stew in waste products, which is toxic and harmful. And those cells don't necessarily have enough nutrition, right? Because we have to think about this. What we eat is not just like, I think sometimes people think, well, I ate, I'm not hungry, and I pooped. That's about it. That's not exactly, there's a lot that goes on. And we utilize those nutrients in order to produce new tissue, in order to have thyroid hormone, in order to do many different things. And when you're not getting enough healthy plasma out to the cells, that means that there's a lack of nutrition that's also getting to that. And your skin is lowest on the totem pole. So if the thyroid is struggling, you are going to have problems regenerating or rebuilding healthy new skin, because the thyroid is slowing down cell turnover and other issues like this that I just discussed. So that's one of the big connections there.
That makes so much sense, that just, the thyroid creates the energy to get that circulation to the cells. And without that, or when that's, underperforming or, suppressed in some way, then your mitochondria can't thrive. And it's this domino effect, right?
Exactly.
So, you brought up diet. What are some of the things that come to mind? What are some of your favorite dietary tools that you recommend to support the process?
One of the big tools, might surprise some of you, but a lot of my clients don't eat enough protein. And I have found this with thyroid clients as well. I totally get that there are all of these webinars and there's these docu-series out there about how we don't need to eat that much protein. We are so protein rich. You should cut back. Well, that's fine if you are a normal, healthy person. But I don't know if Danna, I know for sure you are not a normal, fully healthy person.
Right.
I'm not.
Right.
I had chronic gut issues stemming back, I don't even know how long, at least since high school. I've had eczema. I'm not. And so, this is the thing we have to keep in mind when we are, in a sense, fed these messages. Well, who are they really talking to? Are they talking to a normal, healthy person, or are they talking to me, somebody whose health is subpar? And that's not a judgment. It's just it is what it is. And the thing is, when you are in a chronically ill state, when your health is struggling in some way, shape, or form, whether you have rashes, you've got Hashimoto's, you've got gut issues, you've got any number of things going on, chronic fatigue syndrome, Lyme disease, anything, you are not in a healthy state. And therefore your body requires additional nutrients in order to support it. And here's the thing, all of your tissue in your body, your thyroid hormone, for example, is all built off of protein. Now, thyroid hormone isn't entirely protein, but it requires tyrosine as one of the main amino acids in order to be built. If you're not taking in enough protein, that can be one reason why you just don't have enough of that building block. And we do not have stores in the body for protein, no matter who tells you that. Once the protein is used, it's done. There are no stores.
That's a key thyroid supporting nutrient, right?
Yes.
And that is found, that's a very, very good source of that is animal protein, right?
Yeah. And this is a big deal. Like a lot of times clients will be eating like a carb rich kind of breakfast. Like, I have gluten-free cereal and some like almond milk and a cup of coffee or a bar. And I'm like, okay. And then they go to lunch and maybe they have like a salad with a cup, 2 or 3 pieces of grilled shrimp. And then for dinner, they'll have like half of a sausage link. And I'm like, do you know how much protein you're eating? Because it's barely any at all.
Hardly.
So tip here, big tip, if you have a health issue, if you are on a healing journey of any sort, ideally, from a clinical nutrition standpoint, you should be consuming, like a good target is around 70 to 80 grams of protein a day. And for anybody listening who's like, I don't know what a gram looks like. You know what? I don't either. Let's be real. But, no, I mean, seriously, nobody knows what that even means. Like, you know what I mean? Practically.
It's true.
So like a burger patty, for example, is usually around like 23 grams. That's a good approximation. If you're doing a protein shake in the morning, which is a very easy way to get protein into the body, you want to look for something where a serving size is getting you somewhere between 20 to 25 grams of protein. If it's not, you have to add more. So I know people are like, I want to do those vegan protein powders. They only have 12 grams or 15 grams of protein. You got to add another half scoop. Sorry, you're going to go through it faster, but that's how it goes. If you can add collagen powder, you know, a good, I think it's a tablespoon is about 6 grams of additional protein. You can add that right into a protein shake or add it into something else during the day. If you get up to 2 tablespoons, you're doing closer to 11 to 12 grams, which is great. You know, I know that it sounds weird to like do all these supplements and things like that, but the reality is that your body is not healthy and you have to do additional things to understand how to support it so that it can get back to being healthy. The other piece too, I'm just going to share with you, eggs, 1 egg is 6 grams of protein. A can of tuna is about 12 grams of protein. So keep this in mind. Start paying attention to labels so that when you see like, oh, I'm going to add some of those chickpeas to my salad, you know, when you do a scoop, you're like, all right, that's probably not enough. So you just have some real life tools to be able to go, okay, I'm getting close to my goal for the day. So that would be number one. The second thing is that I do recommend, especially for clients who have thyroid issues for sure, like Hashimoto's especially, any autoimmune disease in general, I do recommend a gluten-free diet. And the reason is not coming from that standpoint of like gluten is evil and it's going to kill you and all the fear-based stuff that we see out there. It actually is more from a biochemical standpoint and a physiologic standpoint in that there are studies demonstrating that gluten is the only protein in food that has the capacity to increase your leaky gut. And so you're increasing this state where if you want to imagine the gut lining, it's only 1 cell layer thick and everything should be like bricks, right? Lined up next to one another, nice and tight, good mortar mix there, so nothing's sneaking through. Well, if you are constantly eating this specific protein that is opening up or allowing the mortar mix to degrade, so to speak, between the bricks, you're now increasing the risk for other partially digested food proteins, bacterial or viral parts or parasite parts that are floating around in the gut to sneak into the body and trigger an immune response. And that is the number one way that we continue to perpetuate autoimmunity, is due to that state of leaky gut. And so, and the official medical term, in case people don't know, is gut permeability. It is in research papers and whatnot. So that's more the reason why I really believe in taking gluten out, is because we want to make sure that there's no external triggers that are continuing to push these processes in a direction that is not your goal, ultimately. And from there, I think, cleaning out your diet of super refined carbs. I'm not saying you should go low carb. I'm not suggesting keto. I'm not suggesting anything that's like a really super crazy diet. I think ultimately you have to find out what your root causes are and eat toward that. But for thyroid and skin both, vitamin A is critically important. And you can ask your doctor to run serum vitamin A to find out what your vitamin A levels are. Vitamin D is also very important for your skin and just your body in general. It is a hormone. Zinc is very important for the body because it's required as part of our DNA to replicate DNA. Zinc is a critical nutrient. So if you're going to make new skin, that means you got to make new cells. And so zinc is very important. Magnesium is also critical because it actually activates. We talked about a few moments ago about energy in your mitochondria. Your mitochondria produce an energy building block called ATP, and to activate, to turn it on, just like how you go from free T4, the inactive hormone, to free T4, or free T3, excuse me, which is the active hormone, magnesium activates ATP. It turns the energy on. So your cells need that. And so those are really some, I'd say, vitally critical nutrients. And obviously, selenium is also great for the thyroid as well.
Wow, those are incredibly helpful suggestions. Thank you so much for sharing that wealth of information. I'm curious about you too and your story. You know, we're a lifestyle platform, and we always want to, we want to hear your story. And, I'm here on camera with you, and I'm like, it isn't just that your skin looks free of eczema. You're saying, you've struggled with your own skin issues in the past, but you are glowing.
You are glowing.
You're just radiant. Like, tell us about your trajectory. How did you get from there to here? And tell us how you got where you are today.
Yeah. So basically, when I was in grad school, I developed eczema on my hands. So it's called dyshidrotic eczema. And I can't speak to any other form of eczema. I can just tell you that the type of eczema I had was hell to live with. It is a type of hell when you have chronic skin issues that someone who doesn't have them doesn't understand, because it is it's interesting because thyroid issues are something where you look fine, but you're not fine. You don't feel fine. So you kind of suffer in silence. Whereas skin rashes sometimes can be hard to hide. And so not only are you not suffering in silence, you are judged for what people who don't understand think you are diseased, infected, dirty, lazy because you don't want to care for yourself, because why would your skin look like that, if you did, or you just don't know how to use moisturizer.
Oh my God.
Probably get a lot of well-meaning, but not very helpful advice. I would
pretty much. And it's sad because I'm in a lot of Facebook groups still dedicated to people with these chronic skin rash issues. And I see conversations of people whose family members are telling them that it's because the priest said that you did something earlier in your life and you are being punished by God. I mean, I really thought I was being punished by God. I mean, it was awful. My hands, you guys can see, I have no eczema on my hands anymore. So I don't believe, even though I am in remission, I don't fully trust. I'm very honest about my journey. I don't fully trust that it's gone. It's not a bad thing. It's just, I still have my steroid cream upstairs, just in case. Because the reality is I had to accept that this may be a lifelong journey, and that I am dedicated to doing whatever I need to do in order to maintain healthy skin. So I became incredibly frustrated after going to dermatologists. I told them, I'm gluten, dairy, and egg-free. I've been that for 5 years. If that is disappointing for somebody to hear, thinking that they can go gluten, dairy, and egg-free and all these things, and it's going to make their rashes go away, sorry. But unfortunately, a lot of times the elimination diets don't work, or they work and then you can't integrate anything back in, because it's naturally, I don't believe food sensitivities are a root cause. We can talk about that if you guys want in a moment. But basically, in a moment of sheer, I'm ready to accept that I am just going to be like a hermit in my house and not go out. I stopped teaching cooking classes. I couldn't work out. I couldn't wash my hands. I couldn't take a shower because I don't care how tight those gloves are. The water still gets in. Water burned so badly, I couldn't touch anything. And so my husband's like, well, what if somebody came to you as a client? What would you do to help them? Because all the doctors wanted to do was give me steroid creams. And I thought about it. I was like, okay. I started doing research. There is not a whole lot of good research out on the web. It's very scattered. Even practitioners will tell you, skin issues are really hard. It's a long road. They'll tell you that flat out, even if their focus is eczema or psoriasis or whatever. And that's true. It
seems
is
kind of like GI issues, very hard to diagnose in many cases.
It is. It's just, the thing with GI is that there's kind of two things, and it could be a combo of both. of what could be going wrong a lot of times. Like you could have gut dysfunction and or have gut infections or gut dysbiosis, maybe some motility issues. Skin issues are a combo platter. And you got to figure out what that combo platter is. And a lot of people have 3 to 4 different issues. So it's very hard. That's why it's like, it might work one way for one person, but for somebody else, it makes their skin worse because that's not the same root causes that they have. So it is more complicated. But I realized that I was very deficient in certain nutrients. I was also under an incredible amount of stress. I mean, for anybody who's watching who runs a business and tries to go to grad school full time, if I had children, it would have been game over. There was no way that I would have been able to have gotten through it. I mean, I was a wreck by the time I was done school. But I started one step at a time to just essentially build up my diet in a way that was healing, that was giving me the nutrients that I really needed to make sure that they were getting in, to reduce stress. I also had blood sugar issues, which was another big problem toward the end of school. So, I had to address all these things, and it took 6 months of seeing almost no results. And then my flares started to lengthen in time, like the amount of time between the flares. And then over the course of another 3 to 4 months, the flares got to the point where they were very infrequent. And then by that basically year to 14-month mark, my skin finally cleared up. And it took almost another year after that for my nails that had gotten all disfigured to finally grow out correctly.
Wow.
So for people that think that they're going to go in 6 to 8 weeks, they're going to be fine, that's not always the case. It can take a very long time depending on all the different factors and everything else that's going on. So you have to be in it for the long haul. I call it the scenic route, unfortunately.
I love that.
I love that.
Yeah. So
here's the thing. If you take those steroids, I'm not saying they're bad. I mean, I certainly used steroid cream while I was doing all this stuff because you have to do something in order to address the inflammatory process that's happening. Whether you choose to go the steroid route or not is your own decision, and that has to be prescribed by a doctor. That said, I chose to utilize it. But the problem is when you slather yourself with steroid creams, number one, you thin your skin. Number two, that steroid is pulled into your body, and it does affect your adrenal glands. And so for children, especially, the effect is even greater. And so you have to realize that it's not just your skin. It may seem like it fixes the thing and the rash that you have and the flare that's going on, but the thinning skin and the effect that it has on your adrenals is not helpful long term. And the more steroid cream you use, the bigger the risk that you will run, that if you stop using it, you will end up with red skin syndrome. It's like burning red skin syndrome. It's all different ways on the internet, but essentially what happens is your skin develops an addiction to the steroid. And you try and take it away, it flares even worse. It can take up to a year for that to go away.
Oh, wow.
So there are some pretty serious consequences. And here's the thing. I think the big problem for those that are listening who've been dealing with skin rash issues is that you get into this mode where it's like firefighter. You're just like, oh, there's another flare. There's another rash. Oh, I feel it coming on here, or I'm itching all night. Some people, I used to wake up in the middle of the night itching. I didn't even know I was doing it. But that said, you just want to make sure that whatever you're doing, you want to address the root causes, because otherwise you're only managing symptoms and flares, and you are at this crazy cycle's mercy for the rest of your life, trying products and creams and salves and all sorts of stuff. But if you can get to the root cause, you can start to rebuild healthier skin, because ultimately your skin, the reflection of what's going on in your skin, is telling you that there's something further or deeper inside that needs to be addressed. So it is an opportunity to look deeper and to support your body and its long-term health.
It's a roundabout way to say there's a silver lining, which is
Yes.
it's kind of hard to digest. I actually had issues and have issues with cystic acne. And when I say acne, people think, oh, no, cystic acne, where it comes internal. It's exactly like you said, things were blocked and they weren't getting out, and I've had to have things lanced and just really awful, right? And it makes sense. Your body needs to be able to move through, to use the things. And then once, you can't just use something and there not be any waste.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right? I mean, that makes sense.
And there are 15 root causes, at least from my research. That's what I found. There are about 15 root causes, and you get a like I said, a nice little combo platter, depending on what your issues are. And that can include hormonal issues, which are endocrine related. So it can be thyroid, it can be adrenal, it can be sex hormones. If you were on birth control pills in the past, that can certainly be a contributing factor. Liver detox challenges are certainly a problem. Any type of gut challenge. I kid you not. Every single client that I have that comes to me, they may not even have any gut symptoms. Every single one has underlying gut problems, whether it's gut digestion and function or some sort of dysbiosis or infection. And so you shouldn't dismiss that simply because you poop normally and you don't have any gas or bloating.
Right.
You definitely need to take a look at what's going on in the gut. It can be stress or trauma related, especially traumas in the past. And for anybody thinking that's super woo-woo, there are legit studies at big universities that have shown that trauma plays a huge role in your body's ability to function properly unless you deal with them. There's just a lot going on. And if you don't know how to piece that together, it can feel very overwhelming. But that's why, when you're looking at the root cause approach, it's just a different experience altogether. And I feel very lucky that I got to do that with my clients and help them, see results and feel better and get back to living a healthier life.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you really quickly, because I guess let me just be the guinea pig for the show. I also grew up having rosacea, and and I have someone who's very close to me who has psoriasis, and we were just talking about eczema and thyroid issues and things. How and what are some more things that maybe I'm leaving out that are skin issues that are related that people kind of need to hear, could be related to your thyroid besides the ones that I just mentioned? And what can you say to the rosacea? I mean, they would just be like, well, you have rosacea, here's some cream. No, there was no.
I know it's kind of nuts. So what's really interesting is there's a lot of crazy, I call it crazy, but I think it's crazy good because at least you know what's wrong. But there's a lot of research showing that there's a real connection between rosacea and SIBO. Like even ocular rosacea, which usually gets diagnosed first by an ophthalmologist, where your eyes are red, that can also be helped by treating SIBO. For SIBO, believe it or not. Yes. So we're looking at eczema, psoriasis, seborrheic dermatitis, chronic hives, for example. And then there's a lot of really people will assume it's an allergy, and sometimes it is, but it can also be the I'm not quite remembering the name. It's not in my head right at the second, but there's a specific infection that can actually trigger hives. There's a lot of different things that pretty much every skin condition, whether it's autoimmune or not, that's the first piece is it autoimmune? If not, then we're looking for figuring out where the inflammatory piece is coming in, what's triggering it, because oftentimes people can't figure it out. They'll try and they're just like, it's all over the place. I don't know why my skin keeps flaring, why it won't. I have one client now, her skin was so red and dry that when she would smile or laugh, her mouth would crack. And so you can imagine that, like something we all take for granted,
right?
Like this simple act of smiling or laughing. And so we've been working on our gut, and we've fortunately been able to increase the flexibility of the skin so that doesn't happen anymore. And she also had a really interesting experience. Her daughter said, hey, mommy, you have all these freckles. And she's like, of course I have freckles. And then she realized that her skin has been so bad for so long that her daughter didn't know she had freckles.
Oh.
So, you know, this is it is a journey, but any type of skin condition that you have, there are other things that can be done. It's just important to find somebody that's willing to listen to you, and you have to be just as dedicated to the process as they are. But it does always involve, it may feel like a roundabout approach, like I said, the scenic route, but you have to take care of all those other things in order to eventually get to your destination.
So rosacea is an autoimmune. Psoriasis is autoimmune.
Rosacea is actually rosacea is not autoimmune.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. Psoriasis is, and dermatitis herpetiformis is. That one's the one that's directly connected to celiac. And there's a bunch of other lesser known skin conditions that are autoimmune. Those are two of the big ones. Like lupus has some skin manifestations to it as well. That would be considered an autoimmune disease. But the other ones, a lot of them are driven by inflammatory processes. And those inflammatory processes really need to be resolved. You have to find out what's driving them, whether there is some mast cell activation or, like I said, gut infection, or your body's not detoxing properly because it's just missing nutrients. It doesn't mean, please, okay, for anybody listening to this, if you think you have a candida, don't do a candida cleanse. If you have skin issues, I can't even tell you how many clients I've had who've done candida cleanses and it's made their skin worse. And don't think if you do a liver detox, that's going to fix it. Your liver probably doesn't need to be detoxed. It needs to be supported.
It needs to be loved, right?
Yes, everyone.
Supported.
Yes, supported, not detoxed, because it has its own detox pathways. It just needs the nutrients to be able to support what's happening so that backups of toxic material doesn't occur. So you need to add in the nutrients to make sure those pathways work properly. So that's the thing. I totally understand and appreciate people like wanting to jump in and they're their own detective and everything. But I don't like do my own plumbing because I don't want a leak. I don't do my own electrical work. If I'm really struggling, I reach out for some support, because honestly, that's a little bit more of an effective and efficient way to get there. But find somebody or follow somebody that really understands what you're going through. That would be my advice, because skin stuff can be incredibly frustrating.
So I have to ask before we sign off, you talked about a lot about, the link with gut. Well, two questions, I guess. One is, what specifically do you do to help your clients support their gut health? And also, you mentioned dietary sensitivities as not maybe being as much of a root cause as many people think. Can you touch on those things?
Yes. So you need to optimize your digestion, number one. That's first and foremost, especially with SIBO and gut infections and avoiding food sensitivities. You have to optimize digestion. You need to know whether you have enough stomach acid, and having high stomach acid symptoms does not necessarily mean that you have high stomach acid, because the symptoms for high and low are the same. And I do have an article all about that on my website. I'm happy to share with you guys if you want to pass that along to your community. It's a really simple test you can do at home with baking soda. So it's super easy. That said, from there, the question is whether you need extra enzyme support and if you need extra bile support. If you don't have your gallbladder, you absolutely need bile support. And typically that comes in the form of ox bile. There are no vegan or vegetarian substitutes for that. You have to replace the bile before you eat, because if you try and wash a pan with water that you just cooked and that has a lot of grease in it from cooking, you know that you're not going to be able to clean that pan. And that's essentially what happens. That's what bile does. It solubilizes the fat and allows it to be absorbed into the system. So you do need, for anybody listening, if you've never heard that, get a bile support if you do not have your gallbladder anymore. So those are some big things that I would say as far as supporting digestion. Slow down and chew. That would be the other big thing. We do not have teeth anywhere else in our bodies, just in our mouth. And they're there for a reason. The bigger the chunks are that end up in the stomach, the harder it is for your digestive system to get work done.
Do you suggest collagen as well, or?
I love collagen. That's always a part of a gut protocol or a skin protocol, assuming the person doesn't have an issue with histamines. If they have issues with histamines, usually collagen is not going to work.
Okay.
When you say issues with histamines, do you mean big issues or just?
It depends. If the person has an intolerance to histamines, meaning they genetically don't make, or for whatever reason, they're not making enough of the DAO enzyme to break down histamines that are produced in food, collagen may cause additional issues. It might. You could test it out and see. Like, you're going to know pretty quickly whether it's going to work for you or not. That's why some people can't do bone broth. Like, I love how they're like, heal your leaky gut with bone broth. Not everybody can do bone broth.
Sure.
It's high in histamines. I'll also sometimes, if people have histamine issues, by the way, you should not be eating fermented foods at all. Mm-hmm. So I know that there's that whole craze of like fermented foods, fermented this, yogurts, and all sorts of things, but they don't work for everybody. And it might be worthwhile to take them out if you also notice you're having a lot of histamine reactions in general, a lot of hives, itching, redness, heat, that kind of stuff with your skin. As far as food sensitivities are concerned, they're not a root cause simply because it's with the exception of gluten. Something has to happen in order for you to develop a food sensitivity. The protein has to be able to sneak in through the gate. The unguarded gate, in order to trigger the immune system. So it's not a root cause. It can't be. Gluten can be, but even if you take out your food sensitivities, you're not going to heal your gut, as a lot of people like to discuss, simply because the gut now requires extra nutrients and love in order to help it reseal. It needs agents like marshmallow root, that are very mucilaginous, that help recoat. So one, you have to seal those junctions back up. You then have to rebuild the mucosal layer that's lining the gut. And you need to ask why. Why exactly did the gates open up? And that's always the question. Certainly gluten can play a role, but I found with most of my clients, it can come from NSAID overuse, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. People are in pain. A lot of times they're using them a lot. It can come from over-exercising. That's another major factor. It can come from, a lot of times, gut infections, hidden gut infections, excessive amounts of candida in the gut. We all have candida in our gut, whether we're healthy or not, but when it's too high of an amount, just like E. coli, if there's too much E. coli, that can be another factor. Lots of antibiotics can certainly be a trigger, but it's not a root cause. So we're looking for things that really address why those junctions became leaky. The food sensitivities are just a symptom of something that has actually already started. And so, yes, you should take them out, but that's why a lot of those
go deeper.
Right. Those elimination diets, like there's a number of elimination diets for chronic skin issues. The reason that people will get better, but they can't add any of the food back in and they get stuck on this really restrictive, challenging diet, is because they have leaky gut. You took out the triggers, that's great, but you didn't solve the underlying problem. So every time you try and add tomatoes back in, or you try and add in, a high salicylate food, you have a problem, you have a reaction. So that's just why I think, diet can do so much, but oftentimes it's not a root cause problem.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been so fascinating, Jennifer, and we're so excited for you launching skinterrupt.com and for all the help that you're going to be able to offer to people who are suffering from these chronic skin conditions, and really getting to the root cause so that they can experience, true healing and a better quality of life. So bravo. And thank you for being here with us.
I really appreciate it. I love what you guys are doing. I think there's such a need to spread this type of information and to help empower the people in our community who need it and who are, I just love the fact that people are like I am motivated to care for myself. That is awesome. And so it's such an honor to be here with you ladies, as well as everyone in your community.
Well, thanks so much. And we'll see you guys on another great episode of Thyroid Refresh TV. Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.